March 2023, a group of researchers formed the Truthmafia, a collective determined to investigate conspiracies and occult mysteries that have been buried for centuries. With a passion for uncovering the truth, they delve into the darkest corners of history, pop culture, and ancient mysteries, seeking answers to questions that have plagued humanity for ages. The Truthmafia is led by Tommytruthful, a man shrouded in mystery and intrigue, dedicated to uncovering the hidden truths behind some of the world's most perplexing and enigmatic phenomena. Their research has led them down countless rabbit holes, from deciphering ancient symbols to exploring the hidden meanings behind popular media and literature. Despite the risks and challenges they face, the Truthmafia remains steadfast in their quest for knowledge. Will their investigations lead to groundbreaking revelations, or will they unravel an even deeper web of secrets and lies? Only time will tell in this ongoing saga of conspiracy and intrigue.
Welcome to another episode of the Truthmafia podcast. And today we got an amazing show planned for you guys. I got two special guests I'm going to introduce here in just a second. We're going to get into the Anunnaki, the reptilians, all kinds of different things today. But before we get going, smash that like button. Make sure you share this video. And in the link down below, make sure you opt into our daily newsletter. That's on Truthmafia.com. That way you get notifications and whenever we're going live. For anyone new in here, we might touch on some GEMATRIA today a little bit too. And in the movie The Matrix, there are several people who wake up from the system. They learn to read the hidden code of the green letters and numbers of this matrix. This is not just a movie. We too have a hidden code behind everything, and it's known as GEMATRIA, which comes from Jewish Kabbalah mysticism. And we have the biggest database on the internet on truthmafia.com, GEMATRIA calculator, and it's 100% free. You know, we don't charge like most of these sites do. Hopefully we'll get into a little bit today too, how certain people might be getting abilities from the radiation, gamma radiation from the sun and Nibiru and all this stuff and what it really is. So I'm excited to be here today, guys. Can't wait for this one. Please smash that like button, share the video. And today's episode is sponsored through BDELL and the Energy Wellness Protection. That link is down below. So protect yourself from the 5G. Make sure you join the Truthmafia. It's $8.88 a month, and that gets you all of our exclusive content. And then if you want a personal decode, you know, we offer that on truthfultv.com. So you got truthmafia.com where me, Bdell are, Ismael, Perez, Donut Factory, some of the biggest content creators in the game that join forces to combat censorship. And then truthfultv.com is just my personal platform where I do my bookings. And, you know, you can find out what your role is in this simulation we call life. So let me introduce my two guests we got here today. I'm pretty excited to have these two young brothers here, and it's Ismael Perez and Bdell.
Peace. How you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm good, man. So, you know, I thought this would be the perfect podcast to bring you two together. And, you know, you're both part of the Truthmafia. So I thought it'd be a cool thing to have this conversation on the Anunnaki. And, you know, there's a lot of different stories out there about the serpent and the eagle and this ancient war that's been going on between two brothers. And just to get two different perspectives on it and then hear a little more about the history of why Nibiru atmosphere was destroyed and what all happened. Now, me personally, I look at Nibiru kind of as a dimension, you know. That's how I look at everything, interdimensional. I think we live in some type of multiverse, but we all probably have different perspectives on that. And depending on what vibrational frequency we're vibrating on, you know, if you're vibrating in the 2D, then yeah, you might be on a flat plane. When you're vibrating on higher levels, you're going to see your reality a little differently. But that's just my perspective on it. So let's get into it, guys. First question I got to ask for both of you is, what do you guys think about this CERN technology and all of these Stargates going up everywhere? There's one that just went up in Detroit. It's going viral on many platforms. Do you think these are the ancient Stargates that they're trying to reactivate due to these celestial events taking place? Bdell, I'll ask you first, and then I'll let Ishmael.
Okay, well, the portals that you see are going up because we're living in a time where the system is at the apex of a seculum of a cycle. So it basically has to reverse the polarity of the wickedness that was propagated by the draconian archonic forces. So these portals that you're starting to see are being placed back into their natural order. Now, you had a portal that was put up in Detroit because Detroit is basically in alignment with the Big Dipper star constellation, along with 7 other cities. And then when you break down the nomenclature title of that faction, it means Moena, which is a term for Moor or Mer or Lemuria or the land of Mu. So these portals is what created this 5th dimensional civilization, because we had access to, higher dimensional travels and things of that nature. Now, when it comes to the CERN machine, the CERN machine is basically comprised of quarks and leptons that manipulate the space-time continuum, and it basically creates these portals to where these entities, non-corporeal entities that come from the demiurge, and they're basically used to propagate a certain agenda that they use that's acclimated to the socio-political aspect of civics and these oligarchs and the monarchy system. That's where the elites, they get their edification on how to control humanity. So they open up these portals to basically stagnate the evolution of a planet. So everything that you're seeing right now, when you look at it from a surface level standpoint, you're really looking at matriarchy, the restoration of the matriarch, as you have the dematerialization of the patriarch. So that also coincides with the factions of Enki and Enlil. When you break down the etymology of Enki, it means Lord of the Earth, meaning that he has dominion. And when you break down the nomenclature title of Enlil, it means Lord of the Sky, which is acclimated to Satan being the Prince of Air when you understand that faction of monotheistic religion. So that all coincides with everything that's taking place when you look at things from metaphysically, scientifically, spiritually, religiously. Everything basically coincides right now.
That's definitely very fascinating. There's something going on with these freaking portals. I see them going up everywhere, and then you see like weird ones opening in the sky all around the world. In the Philippines, there's all these videos going viral. Every new movie that comes out right now, they're hitting us with predictive programming of portals, like the Wolverine versus Deadpool. That's what that's all about. The manipulation of timelines and the multiverse. And so Wolverine dies in his timeline, and he's what's called an anchor. He's like an anchor first player character. So when he dies, it causes his timeline to start to unravel. So that's what the whole movie, Deadpool's trying to bring him back, and they're trying to save the world in it. It's pretty interesting. The Ghostbusters, the last one that just came out, portals opening up. I mean, it's in all of them. It's crazy. So, Brother Ismael, what's your thoughts on these portals, man, these Stargates?
I pretty much agree with a lot of what my brother Bdell just said. And I just wanted to add that, living in a multiverse, there are all kinds of timelines and different alternative scenarios where things are being played out in a spectrum where it's like on one side of the spectrum, you have the forces of light, being victorious. And then on another side of the spectrum, you have the forces of darkness being victorious. So I call that spectrum, the 12 different timelines in which ultimately this infinite amount of parallel Earth realities collapse into. So the negative timeline is known as the Omega. And the reason I call it the Omega is because that's attributed to the AI God, who is in control of everything at the highest level of reality. They control the Draco, they control the Zetas, the Insectoids, all the negative extraterrestrials are controlled by an AI God. So I call it the Omega timeline. And the positive timeline, I call it the Alpha. The Alpha timeline is where, we could say God source wins, and we bring back the restoration of the sacred divine feminine back into balance with the sacred divine masculine, and everything goes, into perfect harmony again. So what's happening here is that because of the times that we're living in, we're, culminating all of these different time cycles, and everything's really just collapsing. So under the control of the Cabal, who who was under the control of the Draconians, we could say that they've been trying to shift us into the Omega timeline, where we go into some sort of cybernetic tyranny, which is what the end goal is for the Cabal, right? They want to make us all transhumans. And then since the Earth Alliance have recently dismantled the Cabal in the last couple of years from their advanced technologies, what we're seeing here is we're seeing a huge reversal, bringing us back to the Alpha timeline, where we're saying, no, we're not going to have a transhumanist agenda. We're not going to go into a technocratic dystopia where it's like the Terminator and humans become cyborgs. So what's happening is that they're reversing all through coding, because everything is, we live in a simulation, right? Everything is code. This chair that I'm sitting on is code. This table that I'm tapping on is code. Everything is code. So what they're doing is they're reversing everything to the original code, which is divine. So what we're doing is they're shifting us back into what is called the sacred timeline. And it's funny that in that movie that you mentioned, Tommytruthful, called Wolverine and Deadpool, they talk about how the sacred timeline. Well, the sacred timeline is the original divine timeline. So what's happening is that right now, as I speak, the veil is also lifting between the third dimensional artificial construct that was laid down by the Luciferian Anunnaki when they took over the affairs of the world. And they know that their time is up, right? That's why they're working so hard to create this cybernetic reality, and through the sentient world simulator and virtual and augmented reality and metaverse are trying to see if they could swing a lot of people into that negative timeline. But it's not, it's not going to happen for the spiritual people, for the people that are actually doing the work. So what the good guys are doing, with the help of the Galactic Alliance and the positive ET races, is that they are reversing everything that the Cabal has been doing for the last 25 years with CERN. They're bringing us back to the Alpha timeline, because if it wasn't for that, unfortunately, we would have all, by virtue of not being, you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? By virtue of being stuck in the Omega timeline, we've all would have been kind of funneled into a cybernetic tyranny, which is what they call Agenda 2030, where they have this technological singularity, the Internet of Things, the Internet of Bodies, and we all get, kind of chipped and part of this technocratic takeover. But that's not going to be happening in the ascending positive timeline. So that's my take. My take is that there's going to be some sort of a bifurcation pretty soon that's going to take place, where the good people of the earth are going to be going into a positive timeline, and therefore not be part of no cybernetic tyranny that's coming. But don't get me wrong, that cybernetic tyranny is going to be a reality for a few that are, a few people that are trying to take the easy route out. They don't want to do it through the organic ascension. So what are they going to do is that they're going to merge with technology. But that's their reality, right? We know that we have a choice to make. So that's my take.
That's fascinating. Yeah,
I had the same perspective on that. So that was a great breakdown, man.
Yeah, real cool breakdown. And down in the description, guys, is the links to all BDELL's social media. Please follow him. Go show him some love over there. He does amazing work. And my boy Ismael Perez. The reason I started Truth Mafia, I've seen so many content creators out here arguing, and I just want to where we can all have a conversation, share our perspectives. We don't all have to agree on everything, but it's cool to be able to have that conversation, And Ismael has 2 amazing books. What are your books called, brother? The links to them are also down in the description.
The Secret Government, Invisible Architects, revealing the secret history of the Cabal, and then our Cosmic Origin, restoring. The reason I use the word restoring is because during the times of Atlantis, we had access to the galactic records. We had access to the different wars that took place throughout galactic history. So in that book, I restore the galactic history of the Earth back to the limelight, so that we could really understand our true original cosmic origin.
That's fascinating, man. And so we got a lot of people that are, of different religious beliefs too. And from their perspective, they look at it as demons and angels. Do you have a breakdown on that? Like from that perspective, if they're like, which faction would they look at as the negative ones, and which one would be the positive ones?
Well, well, you got to understand the diametrical differences between the cherubim and the seraphim. So the cherubim is acclimated to the factions of the 1/3 of the galaxy that went against the order of Anu and was casted out. So that is basically the 200 fallen angels. And the 200 fallen angels is acclimated to the Nephala, or the fallen angel, when you understand the Proto-Semitic language of ancient Hebrew. So the Nephilim is the Nephala is the fallen angel. And that faction is connected to a form of, draconians, whether you want to call them archons, when you break down the esoteric essence of the Gnostic text. So now the Seraphim, that is, I guess that's, you could say that's the positive faction of the Anunnaki. So that's, that's the diametrical differences when you look at it from a monotheistic standpoint for those who are stuck in monotheistic religious systems.
Well, that's interesting. What's your perspective on that, my brother Ismael? And then I want to get into, after you break that down, I want to get into the history you were talking about with Nibiru and how it all came to be, because you got a lot of fascinating information on that. And then I would love, you guys to have that conversation. So
sure. So I agree with my brother Bdell. It's definitely we have an element of fallen celestials that are in service to self, which is what I call the Luciferian mentality, right? Where you think you could own and do whatever you want. And then you have an aspect of celestials that remain loyal to the one infinite creator known as Source, who are service to others. So we could say that throughout galactic history, based on my research and my transmissions that I get through my galactic self, is that the draconians are actually what many religious texts call the demonic forces, because the draconians themselves have been also hijacked by archonic energy. So ultimately, when it boils down to, is the ultimate evil is Archon, the Archon energy, Yaldabaoth, the Ahriman, if you want to get into theosophical studies, the king of the Archon, that is the source behind all evil. So the reptilians were the first ones to fall, as they were once part of a singular celestial family, right? Even Lucifer was once part of the, of the Council of Light, and he decided to rebel. So yeah, we could definitely see a difference even within the branch of the Anunnaki. We have two factions. We have the Draconian Anunnaki, which is members of the Anunnaki that have a little bit too much of the Draconian reptilian genetics. And then we have the angelic Anunnaki, and the angelic Anunnaki are like the Pleiadian Anunnaki, the Lyrian Anunnaki, and the Syrian Anunnaki. So even throughout, what I've noticed is that throughout the history of Nibiru, there was always that war among the royal blood to see which royal blood would come out at the end. And, so you had the royal blood of Michael, which originated in Lyra. So the original royal blood did come from Lyra. And then later through King of the Syrian D High Council, King Kael, which, of course, we know that is the same term that they used to describe Superman, was later reorganized as the Anunnaki. So even the Anunnaki have a history that ties into the original royal blood. But throughout that history, there was always an attempt by the Draconians to infiltrate that royal blood. And, the last infiltration, this is my opinion, was Enki. But again, this is just my opinion.
Yeah, we all have different perspectives. I hear so many different perspectives on that out there. And, it's cool to hear them, different perspectives. And then after you guys each give them, I'll show you a little bit of the numerology tied to each of them, because Enki represents the 13 in Chaldean, and Chaldean is based on 1 through 8. This goes back to the Akkadians. It's one of the ancient forms of decoding, right? And Enlil is 17, which is Nibiru, harp, and Enki's tied to that 13, the karmic energy too. So as far as their vibrational frequencies, I find that fascinating. There's a bunch of stuff tied, like Loki equals 13, matching Enki. I think they're the same archetype. And Loki's always portrayed as the bad one, even like during the end times in Ragnarok. That's when Loki comes out, and he's him and his, I think it's his wolf, right? And the wolf swallows the moon or something. But then you see in Disney's Loki, where he kind of plays the role of the savior. So it's interesting to see how that plays out on multiple different, perspectives. I think it's pretty cool. What do you think on them two factions there? You think it's the other way a little bit, right?
Well, if you want to get to the inception of the truth, you always got to start with etymology, because certain words have origins and it has a historical context behind it. So as I was saying before, when you look at the nomenclature title of Enlil, it means Lord of the Sky. That's also acclimated to Satan being the Prince of Air. So when you break down all monotheistic religions, whether it's coming from Islam, Catholicism, Judaism, it is all based on the fact it's basically a veneration for Enlil. And that's also, connected to many different factions of the Freemasonic order and things of that nature. Now, when you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, the word God is actually pagan because it comes from the word Gad. Now, Gad is also a nomenclature title for Gandriel when you go to the book of Enoch. Then when you look at the word Gad, it's an anagram for the word Dagon when you look at the prefix of the word. So that's why, the veneration that comes from the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church, they wear the fish head. That's also showing their veneration to Enlil. And then you also have a faction that's connected to that when you go into the Canaanite bloodline, when they was doing a lot of, human sacrifice, Moloch and Baal or Benelli or Beelzebub. Those are basically all the same entities, but it's different. The reason a lot of people get lost in translation is because it's different mythologies and stories. If you follow the timeline, it's all about human sacrifice, because God is the word Gad, and Gad is the god of fortune. The god of fortune is Moloch, who is Baal. So that's why, when you just look at it from that standpoint, everything is an energy exchange, whether it's coming from the music industry, movie industry. That's why, so many kids come up missing, because it's being done at the house level of government. It's an energy exchange. So in order to reap the benefits of their fortune within the energy extraction matrix, they got to give an energy exchange. So that's why I say that, Enlil was actually the bad one, but that's just my perspective on it.
That's both cool perspectives, man. The eagle versus the serpent. There's definitely something there, bro. When you look into the history, like, me, I love symbols and numbers. That's what I'm into, right? So I look at all the symbolism behind it, and I've been studying this for years. And just the symbolism there, you'll see a lot of the flags with the eagle with the serpent in its claws, right? Mm-hmm. And then, so there's this. They're showing this ancient war that's going on between these two factions. It's shown in our flags to our countries and a bunch of different stuff, like America. That would be a representation of, I guess, Enki or Enlil's faction, because he would represent Jupiter, Zeus. It even ties into Saturn. Some of the archetypes you see tied to that, but I know people have different perspectives on that. But yeah, it's definitely fascinating. Did you guys ever see? And I do got two more questions. One is, have you guys ever seen in the Talmud where they talk about these freaking lizard species that live in water, and maybe that ties into Dagon, Bdell? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That them entities, and then you have people. Because we know Crowley was manifesting some stuff, right? And he was in contact with this thing named Lamb. Two entities, actually. I think they're two different entities from what I've researched. I could be wrong on this, and correct me if I am. But there was one named Lamb and one named Iowas, right? Mm-hmm. So he did this ritual it started on the 8th, like when we had the eclipse, 4/8 through the 10th. And it was a 3-day ritual where he was summoning this entity Iowas. And Iowas, through all my research, it's Horus. He had a falcon face. It was Horus, and that's what they even said that. Crowley mentioned it many times that he was worshipped in ancient Egypt as Horus. But so what are these entities that Crowley's messing with? That's my question.
You said, could you repeat that again, please?
What do you guys think of these entities are that Aleister Crowley was messing with?
I guess you could say that they are Zeta Reticular Grays, and they basically work in synergy with the factions of the Majestic 12 when you're talking about the energy harvesting aspect on the dark side of the moon, where they have a supercomputer. And this is why they use monotheistic religion, because it's being used as a soul trap mechanism to harvest souls. So the Grays are basically like the foot soldiers for the archons.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Absolutely. Yeah.
So they're not good. What he was
No,
messing.
of course not. No.
You do have Ramardian grays. You got some grays that are good, but not the great majority of them. Because one thing you got to understand about grays don't have any type of biological organs, so that they don't have the ability to reproduce. So they can only live through the physiology of humans on the planet who are operating at a low vibrational state. So just like in the movie Jupiter Ascending, they're able to take non-corporeal form by way of technological devices and infiltrate humans through oscillating wave signals.
Yep.
Yeah, so it all coincides with the cybernetic dictatorship, like Ishmael said. So, because like I said, technology is another way to lock down your genetic frequency. And when you have holes inside your aura, that's when these entities, these draconians, these ETs, these grays, they can control you by way of your nervous system. And when your nervous system is manipulated, it throws off your whole chakra system. So that's how, the great majority of everything within the vetted simulation of reality, everything is being used as a weapon to keep you at a low vibrational state.
That's fascinating, man. So what do you guys think? I'm sure both of you gentlemen have heard about, and by the way, Bdell, Jupiter Ascending, by the way, anybody watching this, if you haven't seen it, you got to watch it. One of the best movies. They went around seeding these different planets, and then when the planet reached its max population density, they would do this thing called the harvest, right? And you can find this in many different theories and stories along different cultures, that they believe there would be this time when the sun would disappear and entities would come up and harvest humanity from underground, and they were they would be described as reptilian or vampiric, and then they made that movie 30 Days and 30 Nights, where up in Alaska, the sun went down and the vampires came. And one thing I will tell you guys is reptilian and vampires is both in that 30 cipher in Chaldean. So I think maybe they might be one in the same, them type of entities. Just my perspective.
Let me interject for a second. Have you ever seen the movie The Voyage of Demeter?
No, sir.
They told on themselves in that movie. When you look at the coffin in the movie, it has the Dracula coffin, but it has the Leviathan serpent on it, I believe.
Ooh.
Well, I think it's either a black nobility symbol or it's the Leviathan serpent. But during the course of the movie, the vampiric energy that was on the ship, because when you break down the word Demeter, she's basically the daughter of Kronos.
Yep.
That goes into that whole faction. So in the movie, the guy, he needed he was basically extracting the energy of all the humans on the planet to where he was able to take corporeal form as a human being. And then once he reached the apex of his physiology, that's when at the end of the movie, he looks like he was one of the Black Hats. He looked like a Rothschild at the end of the movie. You ever seen the movie Dracula Untold? It goes into that as well.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
A Draconian is nothing but a vampire.
I think so too. And the numerology backs it up in that 30 cipher, reptilians and vampires. And then that 30 cipher is all about energy harvesting and loosh harvesting. So it ties right to them. That's why I love the numbers, man. Because like Ishmael mentioned in the beginning, everything's coded in this reality. You know what I mean? And there's certain people that are vibrating on a certain frequency that can see through these codes. And it's fascinating to me. And my other question for both of you was,
I just wanted to add something.
Go ahead, brother.
The draconian vampire relationship at the fall of Atlantis. As you guys know, the Cabal families, the reason they have been staying in power and ruling the rings of power for the last few thousand years is because they have a high concentration of reptilian draconian genetics. So there was one family to rule them all. This was like based on Lord of the Rings. And this was known as the Pindar family. And the Pindar family struck a deal with the Draco that they would be at the top of the pyramid, that they would be the family to rule them all. But they wanted to be immortal. And the Draco said the only way you're going to maintain immortality and live for thousands of years and never age and never die is if you drink human blood. And this is where we get the story of vampires. the vampires are real. Bela Lugosi is real from Italy. I think they finally killed her a few hundred years ago, right? There's Bela Lugosi, for those that research the vampire mythology. But it is no myth, my friends. At the highest level of the Cabal families, we had one family that was given immortality by the Draco, but as long as they drank human blood. And that's the true meaning of where these vampires came from.
Wow.
Hey, that was an awesome breakdown. That's facts. And then when you look at Count Dracula, all the royal families, their bloodline is connected to Count Dracula.
Which is all related to the Pindar family. And the Pindar family are above the Jesuits. Even the Jesuits don't fuck with them, because these guys could literally, they move at the speed of light, like just like we watch in these vampire movies. Everything we watch in these sci-fi movies, well, supposedly sci-fi, is actually truth in plain sight, you know?
Right.
Revelation of the method is what it's called. It's a form of lesser magic. You know, that's how these dark magicians bend and manipulate reality to their will. So yeah, they have to show us what they're going to do. It's part of universal law, and they do it in the way, you know, the universe doesn't understand science fiction and all that. So they give it this word, put this word on it, science fiction, and really they're telling a lot of truth in it. But yeah, I mean, the numbers definitely back and support what both of you guys are saying there. I think the entities are one and the same. And, you know, Scientology kind of worships that Pindar.
Yeah.
Some reptilian Pindar entity at the top. So it's crazy. Yeah, man, there's something to that.
well, Scientology is just another way of it's another way of saying Satanism. You know, when you study the philosophy of Scientology and what they really believe, it's no different than Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. You know, when the Church of Satan in San Francisco. In fact, Anton LaVey, who founded the Church of Satan, was the student of who? Of the writer of Dianetics. What's his name? L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah. And L. Ron Hubbard was a student of who? Aleister Crowley. So all roads lead to Aleister Crowley. And then, of course, you know, Jack Parsons, the guy from Jet Propulsion Labs in Pasadena. I mean, all those guys were conducting rituals and opening up, you know, rifts in our time-space continuum, allowing more negative entities to come in. So yeah, you know, definitely Scientology is just Satanism under a new name. That's all it is.
Yep, that's a fact. And
matter
of fact, it was I think it was a guy who was part of the Nation of Islam, Rizza Islam. He was a Scientologist before he became a part of, you know, that faction of the NOI. Yeah. So a lot of these, you know, these religious systems is masquerading as religious organizations when really, like I said, it's a branch of Satanism.
And they got that dude's grandson out here trying to do gematria decoding. L. Ron Hubbard's grandson, Zachariah Hubbard, you know, he's out here misleading people. So that generation's still doing it today. You know what I mean? So that's interesting.
Most definitely.
Thought I'd throw that in there a little bit. Shout out to Donut. You know, but yeah, man, it's pretty crazy. All these different entities manipulating reality right now. And so what do you guys see? What's your opinion on, like me, I've been telling my audience for a long time, you know, just looking at the numerology behind it and the vibrational frequency and energy tied to 2025, which is the year of the serpent, which we enter the year of the serpent on January 28th of 2025. Now, let me tell you a little history about this day. 128, okay? The Challenger blows up, guys, on January 28th of 1986, which was 73 seconds after takeoff. Well, guess what? Sacrifice is 73. And then we had the towers collapse at 10:28 a.m., right? Which that was part of a whole magical process that they did. But this 128 code, let me show you what I got here. So Smart Cities is 128, Blood Offering, Bridge Collapse, which I believe is the bridge between the two worlds. They're collapsing. Nuclear Blast, Open the Pit, the deep states in that cipher. And the first quantum D-Wave computer was 128 qubits. Now, on 12/8, the movie Leave the World Behind came out, guys. And then on 10/28, which is 128 too, Matthew Perry dies, and his girlfriend was Julia Roberts, who starred in the movie Leave the World Behind. So that's also Bill Gates' birthday, Mr. Jabs. And they put out this movie called Inferno on that same day, which they weaponized some DNA altering V word. I'm not going to say the word, but the algorithms, and it attacked people's based on their DNA. If you haven't seen that movie, it's called Inferno. So there's a huge connection to the 128 code, and then it kind of ties in to 846 too, which 846, if you know about numerology, you know that the tower collapsed at 8:46 a.m. So, or the first plane hit at 8:46 a.m. Right? So that was the charge. 8:46 is a charging energy, and then 128 is a grounding energy. So it hits and charges the ritual, boom, at 8:46, and then the tower collapsed at 10:28, grounding this ritual. And the first person to take the Sandra Lindsay, 8:46, which genetic modifications in that cipher, in the satanic cipher, and then they kneeled on George's neck, 8 minutes and 46 seconds. So this is a number they use, and 128 spelled out, guys. 128 equals 8:46. So the two numbers are connected very much, just as far as energy goes. And with the 128, like I was telling you guys about Wolverine and Deadpool. Let me see the slide. I know I got it up here somewhere. Hold on, I'll say right here. That's the key to the abyss, man. The White Lion, when's the first time we've seen it? In the movie Leave the World Behind, that came out on 12/8. The White Lion ship crashed into the shore. Then you look into it, it's tied to a slavery ship, and we see all this White Lion symbolism in Those About to Die, that series that released on Peacock. They had the White Lion in there. The guy had to fight the White Lion with the real pretty blue eyes. That went crazy viral, that series. And the bridge collapsed, right? In Baltimore at 1:28 a.m. Then on January 28th, the day we go into the year of the serpent, that's the day the bridge collapsed in 2022 on January 28th, when Joe Biden was supposed to do the infrastructure bill in Pittsburgh, and CERN is 128. So I think the Mandela effect too. I think all of that has to do with them opening these stargates, letting certain entities in, and even the 88 ties into it too, with the 88 Lionsgate portal. Remember, that's the day they did that whole Lahaina massacre, and they raided Trump on 88, and Trump equals 88. So I found that fascinating. It's always done by the numbers, man. But I'm not going to say this one right here because I'll get in trouble. But guys, you see this one in the middle on keypad, collapse of the bridge. When that happens, that's when you know to run for the hills. Trust me. Get out. When you see that event happen, I would leave, because the next thing that's going to happen, the power grid's going down, and then I believe certain roundups. And this could be in just the negative timeline, but if you're in that timeline and you see that event happen, get out. Because what I believe they'll do, bro, is some type of alien invasion. And just because, let's say these entities are actually real, that doesn't mean that they can't stage a fake alien invasion using their weapon systems and direct energy weapons to take people out. You know what I'm saying? And blame it on some extraterrestrial from another star system, when really it was our technology that we reverse engineered getting from these interdimensional entities. And maybe the negative ones that are working with them, like the Rothschilds, which I believe are from the bloodline of Cain. I know, Bdell, you share that opinion with me. What do you think about that, Ishmael? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, the main premise of the secret government is relating how this war between good and evil, it's not just a war to see whose political philosophy gets to stand out, but it's really a war on bloodlines. It is a war on, philosophical ideology, right? The Cabal always saw us as animals, as they use the word goyim. So when they wrote the 21 Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, which was their blueprint for world domination, they always saw themselves as these rulers over the animal people. So they call us the animal people, the goyim. So their philosophical ideology is that we come from animals, and the good guys, the White Hats Alliance, whatever you want to call them, their philosophical ideology is that we are spiritual beings currently trapped in a lower frequency in these human bodies of flesh and blood. So not only do those philosophical ideologies have always caused these two brotherhoods, and yes, you know, they are two brotherhoods, to clash throughout history, but it's also been a war on the bloodlines, a war of the seed, a seed war between the reptilians through the seed of Cain. And of course, my interpretation of the snake in the Bible was that Enki deceived Eve and had Cain. And then later, that seed was restored back to the earth through Nimrod. Nimrod's father was Kish. Kish was a descendant of Ham, and Ham was the third born of Noah, who went wayward, who struck a deal with Marduk, the son of Enki, to once again reinstate what I call the serpent bloodline back to the earth, which is the Cabal bloodline. So, yeah, ultimately, it is a seed war, of course. You know, the descendants of Cain, which were later after the flood, of course, were reinstated through Nimrod or through Kish, and Nimrod of Babylon have since then been ruling the rings of power.
Incredible breakdown. That was nice.
Yeah, it's fascinating, man. I definitely agree with you that we are in some type of seed war, man. You can see it, bro, play out on the world stage. They're definitely trying to alter certain people, you know what I mean, and trick us into that. And they did. Unfortunately, I don't want to get in trouble, so we won't mention what we were on lockdown for, but that whole situation where they locked us down for a while, a lot of people fell into that. You know what I mean, bro? And that scares me. Like, I wonder if them people that participated in that, if that's just it for them, you know, or is there a way they can, because dude, there's an article right now trending, guys. I don't know if either one of you gentlemen seen this, but this is a mainstream article, and it said 90% of the Japanese population just was discovered they have nanotech in their body. Did you guys see that?
I heard about it. I didn't really dig too deep into it.
Yeah, I
thought it was like 80% of the world population by now.
Oh, it probably is. This was just one done on Japan. So that's crazy though, bro. And it's like, man, what do you do after that happens, you know? And what I was talking about, how one of them is a charging energy. Here's a little slide I did on that to show you guys what I'm talking about, because it's easier to learn by paying attention. By seeing stuff and pay attention too. But 128 equals 846 in Sumerian. So we have different ciphers, right? And they hide codes in different ciphers. And then there's a source code too. There's an organic code behind the scene going on that they're trying to manipulate. Just like some of us know how to hack and manipulate reality. Trust me, they do too. A DNA X gene blocker is 846. And there's certain people that will be getting abilities. You know, Bdell's talked about it. Ishmael's talked about it. I think the chemtrails, all this stuff is to block that. And the reason we were on lockdowns is to block that. There's because them certain people, they don't want to activate, you know, these abilities. Remember that series Bdell Supercell?
Yeah. Yep.
And you talked about that. That was all tied to that.
See, the thing is, that's a fact, because the thing is, the great majority of all these foods, they have plastic filler in it. And plastic basically blocks out electrical energy to where you're not able to reap the benefits of that gamma radiation that's supposed to be working in tandem with your physiology. So like you said, you know, everything is compromised right now. So they want to turn it into a cybernetic dictatorship. So this is why they use microscopic psychotronic nanotechnology. And the technology is being used as an energy extraction, and they upload it into a neuromorphic cyber cloud for the AI god, just like Ishmael was talking about. So that's basically your blueprint for the Saturn Moon Matrix. It's an energy extraction. It's like the technology is being used as a floppy disk to put you in a perpetual state of reincarnation. So that because the energy is being used, it sucks up microscopic waves of energy from your physiology, and it uploads it to that cyber cloud, basically. So that's what this is all about.
Yeah, I agree. They want to make sure we get stuck in some sort of a inorganic time loop where it's like it's impossible for us to go back to the organic timeline. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you want to really make sure that our conscious. Say that again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
They want to entrap our consciousness in a digital realm. That's which is the worst matrix ever. I mean, that's if we're in a matrix that was a projection from a higher reality. I mean, that digital matrix, there's no way of escaping that, you know. But you know, my theory is that when these two timelines do split, the technocratic dystopia, as I call it, and the organic ascending 5D Earth timeline, they will be separated for 1,000 years, and then at the end of the millennium, there will be one final clash against the AI God. But by then, we are going to have these superhuman, metahuman ascended abilities. So I believe we do win that war, because part of the timeline temporal war is that we've already won that war in the future. As many of you guys know, the future is already taking place simultaneously. From a higher reality, it's all happening at once. And the reason I believe that we did win that war against the AI God, it's just playing out now in the 3D, right? Whereas we're still here, is because of the fact that we're still here and we haven't yet ceased to exist. Otherwise, we would have ceased to exist.
And the best way to basically interpret that is you're 100% correct on that, because when you look at the precessional circle of the equinox, that shifting process, when you're going from the Draconian star constellation, which was in alignment with Pisces, now you have the star Polaris is in alignment with the age of Aquarius. So that means that the Roman occupational government that was under the Draconian constitution that works in tandem with their whole political system and things of that nature, they basically lost its power, because the age of Pisces, Taurus, and Aries was the age of mankind. Now we're in the age of the true light. The true light is basically dematerializing the process of patriarchy. So the divine feminine energy is coming right back to the planet by way of the age of Aquarius being in alignment with the star Polaris. So it's basically a reversal of frequency. So like you said, we already won. But due to the fact,
yeah, a lot ties to that star Polaris, man. It's so fascinating with that. You know, the 8-pointed star Polaris, that gets into the Anunnaki, the star of Anu. We see it in Las Vegas, right? And then the 8-pointed star, it's the star of Inanna, but it goes back to Anu. And with CERN, you see the 8 bars going around there. And then the in front of the Vatican, they have the 8 too. And in Egypt, they have the 8 primordial creator gods, which I believe Marduk was one of them, at least from what I researched. I just did a blog on Marduk, guys. You can find it on truthmafia.com. But yeah, so I think what they call Planet X is Dimension X. And even in the old cartoons like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, remember? That's where Shredder and the Brain was from, Dimension X. So they showed us a lot of predictive programming, just like they do in these movies, man. You take a look at Dark City and The Matrix. Have either one of you gentlemen seen these two?
Yeah, I've seen them.
I've seen Matrix. I haven't yet seen Dark City.
Oh, Ishmael, you got to watch it, brother. You'll love it. If you like The Matrix, so they both have the false reality. They both have the scorched, darkened world, right? They both have this parasite octopi. We see this like octopus type thing. We see it in Stranger Things. We've seen it in Prometheus, the same type of entity that, remember in Prometheus, it went into the engineer's mouth, and that birthed out that, what was that thing called in Aliens? The xenomorph. It birthed the xenomorph. And now in the new Aliens Romulus, they show you how that engineer was born, and it was actually born from a xenomorph and a human mixing together. And when it came out, it grew up instantly like a giant Nephilim. This thing was like 17 foot tall, and the mother, instead of milk coming out of her, it was black goo, nanotech coming out of her. It was crazy. If you guys haven't seen that, that's a good one to watch too. But they also, in both of these movies, they show us the injection into the mind, you know, that whole mind chip Elon's trying to put in our freaking head, and stopping bullets with the mind. I mean, identical chase scenes. They all have the 3 antagonists, right? And they all also have Dark City and The Matrix has the same spiral Masonic stairway symbolism in them. It's crazy. So they're showing us something playing out in these type of movies. And you know, in Dark City, it's Kronos, I believe that's the name of it, Kronos, and then that's the supercomputer, the super AI, like what Ishmael was talking about, and I agree with them 110% there. that they're creating what is called a phantom matrix, right? In a digital copy of our soul. And I think the whole black goo symbolism, all the bleeding eyes with the black goo. Now people say, oh yeah, that comes from a lizard's proboscis where it goes in the eye, wrapping around the optic nerve. No, I think that's the deception. That was, I can tell you right where that originated from. His name was Donald Marshall, who is a high-ranking Mason. So I don't agree with that situation there. But what I do, and I believe in the reptilians, what I do believe it is the reptilians technology. I think it's a nano worm. And we did a whole documentary on it. Me, Donut, Anya Soru. It's called Illuminati Worms. There's 2 different versions of it on truthmafia.com, guys. Check it out. We cover many different movies that have it in it, the symbolism. And the black goo nanotech, or this worm, goes in through the eye, wrapping around the optic nerve, taking over the consciousness of the host. So it kind of allows them to hijack people's bodies or transfer consciousness from one host to another. Just like that new Adobe Shop ad, they literally got the freaking worm going through the eye. I mean, you know, they throw it in our face, and then you see like the Pope walking around with black eyes. And that's, we've seen that conspiracy for a long time, right? All these celebrities with black eyes, and they try to link it to many different things. But that's there's a big psyop with that, because they want to, it's a soul scraping ritual is what it is. And it's putting that, whatever it is, if it's nanotech or an actual worm, you know, Anya Soru has a great breakdown on it, what he believes it is. And it's a little different from my perspective, but his is very fascinating to listen to too. He thinks it's some type of an archon type worm that goes into the eye, and that could be it too. Maybe he's right, maybe I'm wrong. But with this, yeah, they're creating this phantom matrix, a digital copy of our soul. So the people that participate in that genetic manipulation, when they die, they're going to wake up in this phantom reality that is powered by eating up organic matter. Like, look at the, you know, that's why I loved your work so much, Ismael, because me and you were saying the same thing for a while, bro. I'm like, man, I got to link up with this dude.
Well, that's how the AI God's been destroying galaxies left and right. Because it siphons off the universal life force of the organic multiverse, and then it takes that universal life force and it uses it to power up its inorganic multiverse, which only goes up to dimensions 11.5. And the reason being is because at dimension 12, it was actually blocked by the guardian race, or the central race, as I call them, the central race of the mother universe. But yeah, you're right. You know, these parasites, they need organic life forms so that they could feed off of us. But the only way they're going to feed off of us is if they keep us in a constant state of suffering, and, you know, with negative emotions, with anguish, with pain and torture. That's the only way they feed off of us. So, you know, you take away that and you bring us into a golden age. Well, guess what? You cut off their food supply. You know,
right? Yeah, that's crazy, bro. And when you look into the numerology of it all, tethered, right? All this technology, I believe, is tethered to these entities, because you'll hear like Alex Jones, for example, regardless what you think about him, he's put out some cool information though. And so he said once on Joe Rogan's podcast that there's some type of interdimensional entity that, you know, is pretty much what we just said. They're like feeding off of us. And if you look at Tethered, all this technology is tethered to them. He said that the elites would do so much DMT to go into these meetings with these entities. Some people call them clockwork elves, different things, right? And we see that elven race, the dragon bloodline. We see it in Game of Thrones. But he said they would go in there and then they would come out with technology that actually worked, but the technology is tethered to these entities because they can't interface in our reality. So this allows them to use the human vessel as an avatar, kind of. So that's what the whole black goo nanotech, them trying to get that in us through the chemtrails, through the you know what, through our food. That's why it's so important to eat organic. Right now, guys, I'm drinking this classic root. It's called Olipop. It's not the best. It's probiotic, plant fiber, non-GMO root beer. I started drinking about a month ago, and I don't drink no other kind of soda now. You know, I'm trying to get all them genetically modified organisms out of my body, man, cleansing that. Because once that's in you, bro, you got to really be careful. You got to read the ingredients. That bioengineered stuff, once it's in you, then they're inside of you. They can manipulate you a little. But Tethered is 34, matching alien agenda, and I'm thinking this is the negative entities. Apple Inc., AI takeover, zombie is 3-4, and I've mentioned this a lot. On 3/4 of 2021, that's the day the CDC released the zombie apocalypse warning, which now they try to take off their site. But thank God we have it saved on Truthmafia in the Internet Archive. So, because they always like to do that. They'll put something out and then try to erase it. It's kind of funny that they do that. And then they'll call it the Mandela effect to gaslight us, which I do believe there could be an organic Mandela effect going on, but I think they manipulate it somewhat too. And selenium is in the human body, right? It's I believe melanated people are selenium based. And then you have it in electronics too, selenium used in electronics. So it's a good conductor of energy is what my point is with that. And just the whole 322, Archon's tethered to technology is 322, which is the number of skull and bones. And Genesis 322. Listen to this, guys, and tell me this don't sound like transhumanism. And the Lord God said that man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever. That's what I think when I hear that. I'm like, oh, wow. And when you look into the Rona, the code red, that happened first time they ever mentioned it, November 18th of 2019, which was the 322nd day of the year. And then they had the first 322 cases, the Georgia Guidestones, which they blew up, which was to get the population down to 500 million in perpetual harmony with nature. It was erected on 322. So they want it, from my research anyways, it's adding that third strand DNA, adding 3 strands of 22 to our 44 base pairs of DNA, which 22 plus 22 plus 22 is 66. And it's very interesting. The 66th book of the Bible ties into the mark of the beast. Corona 66, black goo is 66 in English ordinal. So I think that's what the whole 9/11 was too. It represented the destruction of the double helix and the rise of third strand DNA symbolically. You know what I mean? But just like the 128 code, some of these numbers, they don't all have just negative aspects. The 128 has a very positive side to it too, guys. Like Neo code is 128 in reverse ordinal. So you have 3 major ciphers tying you to that code, which is a very powerful first player character archetype. And that's 36 in Chaldean. It's the Neo code is 50 in Chaldean. And then you got the 128, which is a big one. Tartaria's 128, God's plan, telekinesis, so there's always it's all duality. There's no such thing as a bad number. It's the intent and the energy that they're attaching to these numbers, which, by the way, if you want to get your personal decode, go over to truthfultv.com and we do an email decode. After you book your decode, within 72 hours, I reach out to you via email, get your name, all that stuff, and I break it down with the gematria, and I show you a bunch of cool stuff about yourself, your power color, your spirit animal, break down what your ruling planet is, your astrological alignment, all that. So, and it's a way we fund the movement over here because we are self-funded. So a little promotion right there for myself. And don't forget, guys, go follow Bdell and Ishmael. And yeah, man, I mean, I would like to hear, before we go, both your perspectives on the timeline with the Anunnaki. That I would really love to hear, like how the planet started being destroyed, what was all going on with that. Ishmael, you want to go first, and then we'll let Bdell what his thoughts.
So you want to know how the world was? So I'm sorry. Repeat your question again.
Okay. You remember off air when you started breaking down about the Anunnaki and the atmosphere? Yeah, that stuff.
So the reason why the Sumerian tablets failed to explain what happened to Nibiru's atmosphere is because they wanted to hide from us the fact that we were once part of a galactic war. You know, our planet was once engaged in a galactic war millions of years ago. So they first wanted to hide the galactic history. They didn't want us to know that advanced civilizations have been here for millions of years, that Atlantis was just rather the last of the advanced civilizations before we fell into consciousness. So the reason Nibiru was leaking was because back then there was a war between, straight out war between the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the Draconian Empire. So it was a war that encapsulated pretty much a good portion of the Milky Way. Over 200,000 star systems were involved, mainly star systems that were part of the intergalactic councils. And Nibiru was then used as a battle star planet for the Syrian High Council. So this was back in the days when Nibiru was actually used in the galactic wars as a, very similar to the movie Star Wars, as a planet with the ability to beam planets into oblivion. They had that particle beam weaponry where they would just beam it at the planet's electromagnetic field and just blow it up into pieces. So what ended up happening was, during the first seeding, back then when Mars was colonized with humans, not green man, right? Humans. When Venus was colonized, the Earth had a colony, but back then the Earth was 3 times the size. Many believe that the Earth reincarnated and it used to be a bigger planet known as Tiamat. Well, yeah, it's interesting. You know, this was like 4 million years ago. So back then, our entire solar system was colonized, and Nibiru was known as the 12th planet. And the reason Nibiru was given an elongated orbit where it only came in every 3,600 years was because it was designed to patrol over 200,000 solar systems. So when it was outside of our solar system, it was actually watching over 200,000 solar systems. So it would also elongate all the way to Sirius B and then come back to our solar system. But in between, it was just patrolling the different star nations that were liberated by the Galactic Federation. So what ended up happening was there was a double agent that infiltrated the Federation from the Draconian Empire who shape-shifted into a human. They opened up a portal from the Regel system, because back then the Regel system was used as a stronghold for the reptilians right next to Alpha Draconis. And then, of course, the Betelgeuse and the Belectrix, Zeta Reticula 1 and 2. Those were all strongholds for the Draconians. So what they used it from the Regel system, they opened up a portal on planet Mars. They brought in reptilians to sneak into our solar system, because back then the Federation was carefully guarding our solar system from the Draconians. They were preventing them from destroying the first seeding. And this is like way before Atlantis and way before Lemuria, when the Earth was a super Earth. And so what they did is they slowly built a military outpost on the 11th planet. The 11th planet was known as Maldek, right? So the reptilians built out a military outpost, and they launched a straight-out war with the Martian colony. And that war was all about transhumanism. They were trying to implement transhumanism back then. So what ended up happening was, when the reptilians launched a war against the Martians, they ended up blowing planet Tiamat, which was the original super Earth. And when that happened, the Syrian High Council told the Battlestar planet Nibiru, which was back then, it was under the control of Anu still. Anu had to actually wrestle another guy by the name of Alalu in order to gain control of Nibiru, because Alalu wanted to be commander, but Alalu had too much reptilian genetics. He wanted to be the commander, but in service to the Draconian Empire. So him and Anu were like, they fought, and supposedly Anu castrated him, because that's the way to win the throne on Nibiru. You have to take away their testicles. So he won the war, and when Nibiru came back, it immediately blew up the planet Maldek. But because the planet Maldek was full of radiation and nuclear weapons, well, guess what happened to the atmosphere of Nibiru? So some of that radiation reached the atmosphere of Nibiru, and it caused a tear. But it wasn't until 500,000 years later, when the Nibirian inhabitants were realizing that their lifespan was decreasing, and then they attributed to the hole in their atmosphere. And then that's when they finally came for the gold, 500 million years ago. So that's what happened to the Nibirian atmosphere. It was it was you could say torn, because they blew up the planet Maldek. Like they were just like in a rush. They actually teleported into our solar system. They used the Stargate, because otherwise it would have taken many more years, every 3,600 years. So what they did is they teleported, and as soon as they came into our system through a Stargate, they just blew it up without even thinking, wait, hold on. What if all their nuclear weapons reach us? And, they didn't even think of that. They just wanted to destroy planet Maldic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of the galactic history. If you want to know more of the details about that order, our cosmic origin, where is it? Right there. This blue book right here.
Check that out.
It goes back to like 500 million years ago of history between the Federation and how the Federation was formulated. Because at one point we had no Federation, man. The Draconians were going to straight out take over the entire universe.
Wow.
They're like a warring culture, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
These Draconians. Yeah. And dude, so we had another thing before we end today. So like Jay Dream, shout out to Jay Dreamers. He sent me this. This is in Colorado. Reminds me of some Stargate technology too. You got the two obelisks there. And we know back during the Tartarian Empire, they were using what they tell us is not even real no more, red mercury, but it's 100% real. And these antennas on top of these buildings, they were pulling energy out of the atmosphere, right? Just like Nikola Tesla told us about, but somewhere along the lines, they banned this form of technology. And was that technology better for us, you guys think? And now they got us with this dirty energy, which is harming our DNA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that technology is based on the Earth's frequency. It's harnessing what is known as the toroidal field of the planet, which is what causes the planet to spin, giving us unlimited amount of energy, and it's healthy for the environment. We're using petrochemicals, we're using combustion, all that shit, all that stuff. I'm sorry, it's bad for the ecosystem and hence bad for our health. So of course, the Tartarians were onto something, and that's why they destroyed Nikola Tesla's papers. I mean, well, they didn't really destroy him, but they used that information for themselves, and they told us that they didn't have those papers anymore because Nikola Tesla was onto that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was, dude.
You get a lot of free energy beyond the ice wall. They have anthracite coal that can give power to the whole planet Earth for like millions of years without no type of westernized electronics. So. And
that's what's cool, because people think, oh, if there's an ice wall, then the Earth can't spin. Now I look at it a little different. I think what's spinning, I think we live in some type of egg-shaped organic simulation, and the firmament is what's spinning, the torus field. But I could be wrong on that. That's just my perspective. And I believe in inner Earth too, bro. I think there's a whole civilization underneath of us. I do believe there's ice wall, other lands, and Bdell, the firmament. There's like this soul trap that Muraduke put over here that stops us from trying to stop us from ascending and stuff too. What's that called?
Well, when you look at the word planet, you got the suffix, you got net. So he set up the net of Indria, which is also known as your Draconian reptilian net, or comprised of the cosmic energy grid that works in tandem with the electrical grid system. So that's why everything, as far as like westernized technology, is basically being used as a soul entrapment purposes.
Man, these people are they're just evil, bro. Like the stuff they do, it's so crazy. And I always wonder, are they not scared of karmic retribution?
They don't believe in that. They see the way I was told is that when the reptilians were first dropped off in our universe, and yes, they were dropped off because they were too warlike in another universe, and that universe had already reached the level of completion where all its inhabitants had ascended, with the exception of the reptilians. So they said, what do we do with this race? Let's just drop them off in this other younger universe. So when they drop off the reptilians, they drop them off, and their leader, who was, I believe was Lucifer, told them that he gave them a creation myth. And the creation myth was to do as you want. This is your universe to conquer, do whatever you want, as you encounter other specimens, you could ravage them, you could pillage them, you could conquer them, you could enslave them, you could do whatever you want. So that's part of their creation myth. It's also embedded in their genetics to want to conquer and control.
Man, we need to write whoever dropped them off here, write them and tell them to come pick them bitches back up.
In one aspect of the universe, they were actually dropped off by the Karyons, which was an advanced avian race, who were also known as the Seraphim in many of the religious books. But in another version of the universe, they were actually dropped off by Omega himself, the AI God, who back then did not have access to our universe, but needed to needed his, somebody to do his bidding for him until he was allowed entry, which is now what big tech is doing. They're trying to build the infrastructure for the emergence of the AI God. So, depending on which universal timeline we're speaking of, I mean, there's so many of them. But yeah, they all say that the reptilians were dropped off, whether for good or bad. But
and then that's also part of the reason why the Draconians, they towed the moon into our solar system.
Yeah.
They towed it into our solar system from planet Jupiter. So, like I said, it's a quantum satellite that controls the energy and frequency and vibration of humans to keep them at a subjugated state to where they're not able to evolve. So, like I said, because they're basically custodians of the planet. So, like I said, all Westernized technology works in tandem with the cosmic energy grid system. It's to keep you here.
Yeah. So that's tied into the Saturn moon matrix. See, I think it's all there's truth in all of it. You know what I mean? And how Ismael said there's different. We definitely live in some type of multiverse, so there's different realities playing out all the time. And that's very fascinating. I think part of what they're doing with CERN is trying to merge these timelines, just like what they showed us in Loki in Loki verse or not Loki verse. Deadpool with Wolverine, that sacred timeline. And remember, they were going to crop all the other timelines and just kill all them people, dude. They just was like, yeah, we'll just kill all of them and merge them into one timeline. I think there's something like that trying to play out here. But the whole thing was, no, you can't do that. We need to save these other timelines. They were trying to save them. So it's pretty interesting how it's all playing out, man. And I think in the end, good will prevail, because good's always stronger than evil. So it always prevails, but it's a great time to be alive, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Because the year 2025 is the year of completion. That's the 9-year, the year of the cosmic energy serpent. And that serpent also works in tandem with our physiology. So what happens is when you have the chakra system of the planet is being activated, it activates those who are acclimated to the planet. Mm-hmm. So when you remember when you had the solar eclipse that took place, that solar eclipse, and then when you go to the theological text of Jonah chapter 3, verse 4, it says that Nineveh shall be overthrown. Nineveh is another title for America. So Jonah is also the title for the dove. The dove is a representation of the ascension process once you reach the apex of consciousness. So what happens is when the chakra system of planet Earth is being activated, it's going to cause a certain consciousness. And that consciousness is going to be operating under the Venturi effect, which is a velocity of ether that dematerializes the cosmic energy grid system. So it's not only subjected to the fact that the planet is going through a state of metamorphosis, it's going to metamorphosize your conscious state, because when you study the holonomic brain theory, it demonstrates that your brain is tethered connected to the simulation and the quantum world at the same time. So that means that you have the ability to think outside the box once the cosmic energy grid dematerializes. So that's basically what you're talking about, the cosmic clock, because the cosmic clock works in tandem with the neurological clock, which is the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And the suprachiasmatic nucleus is extracted by way of the neuromelanin that creates melanocytes. And those melanocytes is how you reach the certain apex of consciousness. So literally, we are walking and talking CERN portals. So the more that you raise up your vibration, you can manipulate the space-time continuum just like CERN does.
That's fascinating right there.
Yeah, that's pretty tight, man. I agree with that, man. You hit on the bullseye.
And this whole thing with the year of the serpent, Bdell, remember, I don't know if you got to see the last Hunger Games, bro, but they show so much.
I haven't seen that.
Bro, the last one, that's what it's all about, is serpents. So in the last scene of it, they let in these freaking genetically modified serpents, and they're all colored. They're rainbow colored. They're really pretty looking serpents, but they are deadly. One bite from you start swelling up, right? But here's the thing. They're trained. They're military trained, genetically modified snakes. So if they have your scent, they will not bite you. So the girl, this guy that liked her, he wiped her tears the night before with his rag, and she won, but they still were going to kill her and put the snakes in with her. and because she was from this district that was like rebellion, that I believe they do want to break us up into districts, just like the Hunger Games too, where the super poor and the super rich, and we're separated by these mega cities, these smart city type things. Mm-hmm. And in that, he threw the rag in there so the snakes knew her scent and they didn't kill her at the end. But yeah, there's a lot of symbolism in there, a lot of snake symbolism showing that the year of the serpent is going to be a rough year.
Yeah, it's also they showing it in a lot of music videos. All the movies that I've seen is basically showing you the rise of the cosmic energy serpent, because they know that that's going to be the precursor to the shifting process. So that's why whatever the deep state shadow government got to do, they got to do it now. So that's why it's imperative. Like right now, these 2 moons that we're going to be having in our solar system on September 29th, because the representation of the 2 moons is basically the resurrection of consciousness that basically collapses the demiurge. Because when you have 2 moons, it's going to amplify the gravitational pull that's connected to the tides on planet Earth. So I don't know if it's going to activate some form of, calamity. We're talking about activation of the seismic activities and things of that nature. You got that fault line got struck a little bit in California, and then you had the 2025, I think it was the future map of the United States. All this stuff is like working in tandem. So whatever is supposed to happen is going to happen. And then it's not a coincidence that Donald Trump, he signed that national declaration of emergency for FEMA, to where they have full validity and they take over the military by way of the continuity of government. So all this stuff, so all this stuff is works in tandem basically. So who knows?
And then to add to that, we also going to reach the completion of solar maximum, which means that our ascended abilities, the rise of superhumans, I would say, is probably going to be in the spring of 2025. Summer 2025.
So we're going to start seeing some people. I think a lot of these people might even have abilities now. They just ain't aware of it. It's starting to happen, with the solar eclipses activating things. And also, what day did you say that was, Bdell, with the 2 moons?
September 29th.
Wow, 929. Dude, so there's 929 chapters in the original Bible, and September 29th is the day CERN was established in 1954, bro. Yeah, so this is epic with all these stargates going up, in that. But yeah, that's crazy right there. I didn't even know about that part. So that it's going to be,
especially with that lunar eclipse, man. Like that lunar eclipse, I think that was basically the apex of the end of patriarchy, because it was in Pisces. So it's like a transitional shift. It was really like a timeline jump for what is to come. That's why I don't think it's going to be an election. That's just my opinion. So I don't see it happening, because you can't have a democracy or a patrilineal system in a matriarch that's connected to the Aquarian age, because everything is, as far as like a matriarch, is for the people. It's not. That's why when you look at the dollar bill on the American dollar bill, it says the United States of America. Of denotes ownership. That's patriarchy. United States for America is for the people. So they don't want that. And so in order to create this totalitarian system, they gotta be, they gotta pump that propagation of patriarchy. That's the only way they can have people in a state of subjugation to where they're not able to live abundantly with nature. So I don't see it happening, but I don't know. Who knows?
Me too. Also, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
I just want to say also, I was able to study when the Mayan calendar really ended, because we don't operate under the real sacred calendar, which is Egyptian, Ethiopian, Mayan, Atlantean, Lemurian. We're using the Gregorian calendar, which is Cabal run, right? It's the wrong timekeeping system. Well, I was able to calculate the difference between the real 2012 in reference to where we are at using the Gregorian calendar, which is what we use, unfortunately. And it is a 14-year difference. So what's happening is right now, according to the real Mayan calendar, December 21st, 2024 is the end of the world, but not the end of the world as we know, but the shift into the age of Aquarius.
So you saying, so what is it again? What was the date again?
By the end of this year, we're going to be seeing a shift into the age of Aquarius sometime by the end of this year. Yeah, so we are in 2012. In other words, this is the real 2012. We're not in 2024. We're really in 2012.
Yeah, I agree with that.
If we operate according to the original sacred calendar,
360-day-year solar calendar that we went by with the Aztecs, the Mayans, and then they, changed it. We went to by the Julian calendar and then the Gregorian calendar. So they're adding all this extra time. And even if you go to scripture, it says they will change the laws and the times of the Most High. So you know what I'm saying? They manipulate it, throw the timelines off. And then with that whole thing with 2012's the end of the world. So they did that early. So people, when it came again, they're going like, man, nothing even happened. Just like the September 23rd thing. You guys can go watch any of my videos. Everybody's like, oh, September 23rd of 2022, the world's going to end. Well, the coded event, there is an event on September 23rd, but all my decodes show 2026. And I've been saying that since 2020 when everybody started saying, and 923 is tied to Osiris. 9 + 2 + 3 is 14. Osiris was chopped up in 14 pieces. His wife Isis found 13 of these pieces. She made a gold phallus, put that on and performed some form of necromancy, and that's how Horus was born. But his brother Set chopped them up in 14 pieces. Remember when we seen that picture going viral of Podesta holding up his hands? He had the 14 on one hand and the fish on the other. That's what he's paying homage to. He's paying homage to Osiris. People don't even know that. So, yeah.
And then you also, did you watch that Uniondale rally with Trump? Yeah, at the end of it, he said, I'm going to be gone for a while. So what is that basically denoting the fact? Are we going to be going through something as far as like a shift? Are the elites, starting to disappear? During this time period, you get all these people stepping down since Diddy got caught up. So I don't know. It's one of those things you got to look at it, from a meticulous level. So I don't know. I pay attention to what Trump says a lot because he's neutral. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't, fall on what side. But that's another book. If you don't got this book, you should somebody should, get this book called The Deep State. Trump FBI. It's a pretty decent book.
Pretty good book?
Yeah, it's a pretty good book. By James B. Stewart. Yeah,
my opinion with the whole election, I don't, you guys know me. I'm not a political person. I'm a diehard pro-life conservative as far as my values go. But I don't have no political affiliations. I just don't trust no one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm truth-seeking conspiracy. I don't believe in no forms of government. But with that being said, if you put a gun to my head, pick Kamala or Trump. I mean, I would pick Trump just because he makes me laugh. But that would be the only reason. It'd be a comical thing. But here's what I think they might pull off, dude. So if they say Joe Biden dies, right, before the election, then that would cause them to postpone the election just out of respect to him until 2025. And that would put Kamala Harris as the 47th first female president, like they showed us in the series House of Cards. The 46th president died. His wife became the 47th first female. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but they did show us some form of predictive programming in that series, The House of Cards, of that event. And in Veep, the first female was the 47th. And then Trump, he actually has tying numerology to the number 48. So maybe he comes in after that, right? And could win in after the election's postponed it. I don't know if that's going to happen. That's just a theory I was thinking of. What do you think, Ismael?
Honestly, I really believe that we are going to be witnessing the fall of the Cabal and the rise of the Earth Alliance. And I believe that Trump is the front or the face of the Earth Alliance. But that's my opinion. Some people here don't like Trump, and it's cool. But that's my opinion based on, all the research I've done.
No, you have the right. I respect your opinion, and I respect everyone's opinion, man. That we should, as adults, people that can't just want to be in an echo chamber and only hear shit that they believe, you're never going to learn that way. You got to be open-minded. You got to listen. And listen, I'll be the first one. I'll tell you right now, if Trump ends up coming out and doing the right thing, I'll be the first one to cheer for him and say, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. Maybe he is good. But, yeah, man. I mean, I was all for him at first when he was like saying the fake news stuff. But then when the jabs came out and he got behind that kind of pushed me away. And I don't know, man. I hope they say there's like 8 different Trumps now. You know, I don't know.
Well, actually, there's 3.
Oh, 3? And is it true? Somebody said Trump was on the moon. Did you ever hear this?
No. I mean, he does.
I swear to God, they said they hit him out on the moon because they were trying to take him out down here. That was going around in the little in one of these queue rooms I was in. I was just in there peeking around, seeing what people were talking about. And they were talking about that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if that's true. But see, that's the problem. There's so much disinfo going around out there, you know? You don't know what to believe.
So this is my just perspective on it. Like when it comes to, I don't think there's no such thing as a left lane and a right lane. You got a left lane and a right lane, and they going on one road and they have one destination. And that destination is leading humanity in a state of destruction. So like I said, when it comes to that, I disassociate myself with, the political infrastructure because it all works in tandem of why we've been subjugated as being American citizens because we're under ecclesiastical law. We don't have no type of sovereign capacity because the church and the state is not separate. So that's why they use the religion that took us out of the matriarch. So, when you look at it from that standpoint, you can kind of see why you can be like, well, I have to, in order to understand the art of detachment, you have to disassociate yourself from the religion and the political infrastructure as well, because they all work in tandem. So that's the only way they're going to push the one world government and one world religion. It's going to come from those factions. I tell people all the time, whether you look at it from a biblical standpoint, the Antichrist is not going to be somebody who works at McDonald's. It's going to be somebody who has political, power. It's going to be somebody who has religious power.
Some people think it's not even going to be a human. Then other people think it's going to be Barack Obama. I had this dream once, right? So, and it was so vivid, Bdell and Ishmael, it blew my mind. So I had this dream that Barack Obama never stepped down as president, really. It was all a show, in that the Trump and Biden presidency was all a show too. And Obama was really running shit from like the deep, whatever you call it, the shadow government perspective of it. And I don't know, it was just a dream, but I was like, man, that'd be crazy if that was real. But when he left, he stayed in Washington. He did some weird things, that Obama, didn't he?
I think I was like a freshman in college during this time, but I believe he had signed something with the United Nations to where he was like prime minister or something like that. I remember he signed that a long time ago.
Yeah, he was the leader of it.
Yeah, I remember he signed it. I remember he signed that, but you can't negate that, Donald Trump, he's actually, Joe Biden is not even the president because there's no democracy. It never was. Donald Trump, he's actually the 19th president of the republic right now.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so he signed that, the Second Declaration of Independence in 2020, and that was basically the restoration of the republic. And it basically eradicates the whole perception of democracy. Democracy is nothing but Babylonian worship, hedonistic practices operating under corporate internal codes, basically.
I agree.
So there's a conspiracy out there that Kamala Harris is Obama in a skin suit. What do you guys think about that? That's what Rhonda said in the chat.
That could be very possible because
she might have made that conspiracy up too, but it's a funny one.
Well, there's in our community, we call it, right? They call us conspiracy theorists. They're saying that Kamala's real name was Kamal Arush, that he was actually born male. So we have another transvestite there, not just Michelle, Obama, but Kamala herself. But we'll see.
This is a Luciferian system where they invert reality, so they invert nature. So that's possible.
Wow, that's interesting there. Well, I will say one thing. When I was watching them, dude, I seen Kamala's neck look like it was sagging. Like, I didn't know if she had a skin suit on or something. What the hell was going on there? But I seen that with Joe Biden before too. The back of
I think it was a couple weeks before that happened. I think he said something about him releasing the Epstein list or something like that. And then all of a sudden, Diddy goes down. Diddy's on that list. Now, the official list, like some people say, well, Donald Trump is on the list. I don't think he's on the official list because why would he throw his own self under the bus like that? That doesn't make sense to me. But there's an official list that hasn't been, released, and that's part of the reason why, the great majority, of all these things is happening, as far as like, all these afflictions is happening towards Donald Trump and stuff, because he's trying to get rid of the swamp.
Yeah, I agree.
So the list, there's a lot of people. You guys think Diddy's on that list?
Oh yeah,
a pyramidal hierarchy, just like the Cabal does. So Oprah is a high player in the list. So PD is under her, and then under PD you have other people. But I think I think you hit it on the spot. I think that Mr. T, or I guess we could call him Trump now, is definitely a huge enemies. In other words, there's a saying that says you keep your enemies closer than your friends. So I think that Trump's role is bigger than what we've been told or what we see. So yeah, that's the reason why there was a picture of him and Epstein, was because he was just there trying to get info on that. But he didn't go to the island.
He's playing fifth dimensional chess.
Exactly.
That's all he's doing.
That's where I'm with you on that, Bdell. I'm with you on that.
Well, it's fascinating. I hope both of you guys are right on that. I don't have too much faith in Trump, Kamala, or Joe, but let's pray that is true, because we do need someone fighting for us. It'd be scary to think no one is, and but I also think we should also approach it like always just plan ahead, like no one is trying to save us. So we always got to save ourselves. Make sure you guys got food and water and protection, and because I really believe they're going to try to knock the power grid down, cut communications, and I don't know what they're going to do with that, but I got a couple of different theories, man. And like with all these fires going on right now, we have record numbers, bro, of flooding. Did you guys see what happened to Europe?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that too?
The dam, it broke.
I'm going to show you guys. I got the clip right here. Here, I'll load it for us real quick. Yeah, man, Europe got hit. America, like there's all these natural disasters that are or I call them unnatural disasters, because it's probably freaking HARP. But yeah, all this crazy stuff is going on here. This is the drone footage. Let me open this one. This is the drone footage over just from Europe. I mean, it's bad. It was bad, man. You guys see? I mean, that is crazy. And then North Carolina got hit too. It's pretty much all underwater. So what is going on right now with the weather? But it ties into the weather control, and we're getting closer to 2025. So yeah, man, I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of crazy stuff going on the world stage.
I got a question, Ishmael.
Go ahead, brother.
You remember some years ago, Donald Trump on his Twitter page, on the head of his page, and he had that big old tall white he was standing about like 13 foot on his Twitter page. It was basically the header of his Twitter page. It was a tall white, and they were like taking pictures of him or whatever. What's that all about?
I never saw that, but what I do know is that he is working with the Galactic Alliance, based on my info.
Okay.
He works with several alien races that are actually benevolent. The alien races that have been fighting the Draco up in space for millions of years. So
yeah, I remember, because I came across the picture. I found it on Reddit, and then it was redacted. I wasn't able to find it again. So I thought maybe you knew something about it, but it was a real picture. It was on this header. It had a guy, he was standing above the wing of the plane. It was like 13 foot. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow, that's cool. That's good to know.
I don't know if sometimes they do a lot of semantics and technology, and they put certain stuff in front of our face. Yeah. And to decipher what's going on. It's up to you.
Definitely fascinating, all of it, and yeah, it's exciting to be here, and I can't wait to see what plays out. I hope it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I really do hope Trump is good, and I really do pray that he's doing the right thing. I really do, man, but I don't know.
Yeah, Trump is good. The only person I'm kind of iffy about, because I think he's playing both sides, is Elon Musk. With his
I don't like Elon.
Oh yeah,
that he's going to be Trump's going to give him a government position where he gets to audit the federal government. That's going to give him a lot of power. He's behind Starlink, which is what the White Hats are going to use to overcome the airwaves when they pretty much take over. And he's also involved with the QFS, the new quantum financial system. So I just hope that Elon Musk does not lay the infrastructure or the groundwork for the Antichrist, which is, I believe it's always been AI. AI to me is the Antichrist.
That's the thing I said as well.
That's fascinating that you guys brought that up, because Ishmael, I'm actually working. I'm going to show you guys a sneak peek of this blog I'm working on. And it's freaking about Elon Musk and the X, dude. And that's why I don't trust him either, because I study symbolism. I've been doing this for a long time, bro. I know what the X represents. And it's Osiris. And Osiris is the coming of the Antichrist, the god of resurrection, right? So the XX is 10. We see Satan is 10. There's so much different connections to this X. It gets into the Greeks. I mean, there's many different breakdowns on what it represents. Planet X for one, right? Maybe it's a whole code to that. But remember, we've seen a lot of symbolism tied to the X, and how Elon got a freaking website with one name. That's never been done before. You guys know that, right? Like you can't have a website that's just the letter X.
Right.
Like, no one's ever done that, bro, until him. So that's crazy that he was allowed to do that. And it all ties into our DNA, bro. This X, it's all tied to our DNA and the manipulation of our DNA. I'll be releasing this blog here pretty soon, guys, for you. This is just a little sneak peek right here, but it all gets into the DNA, which we're in this sacred war with this DNA. And even the mark of the beast symbol. What is the symbol of Baal, the X? So we see it a lot, man. Pope Francis, his coat of arms, he has that 8-pointed star and the key symbolism, the X. So it's in many different cultures, but you also see it tied to the whole dark side of the pedo situation too, with sodomy rituals. So there's nothing really too great tied to it from what I've researched, and that's what he's represented from day one. What was his first company called? It's always been the X. Remember, guys?
SpaceX.
So yeah, space. No, he had something before that though. What was it, like X.com, right? Remember? Yeah, he had X.com before, I think, PayPal or something. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, and if I am, just correct me in the freaking comments, guys. And then you got X tied to AI and the number 19. So there's that whole connection to it. And there's some people that like what did you call the AI? What'd you call it, Ishmael? The AI system? You had a name for it.
The Omega?
Yeah, Omega.
Yeah.
Which
the Omega
we've been talking about.
Also say that's the Metatron.
Well, he goes by the name of Omega Metatron. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, check this out. X is 24, right? What's the symbol of Omega? The 24. It's so that's pretty crazy. And there's this other dude out here. He does breakdowns like on the Phoenix phenomenon, and he said he calls the AI system AIX. So I think there is some connection to the whole AI with that X thing. And I don't have too much faith in Elon either. I share that with you, brother Ishmael. Definitely don't trust him at all.
I think he's the Trojan horse. I think he's going to be the Trojan horse when Trump comes back to power.
Mm-hmm. And they got to follow the biblical timeline.
They do.
Yep.
We have to have the Antichrist make an emergence.
Yep.
They
did the red heifer sacrifice not too long ago. So
did they?
Yeah, they did that. They did that. In the spring they did it.
Oh wow! So I'm a little behind. Yeah, I was in the hospital during that period. So, wow. So the red heifer's been done. So now they can build the third temple because that was a purification ritual. Mm-hmm. Oh boy. Yep.
And that's in alignment with Hopi prophecy, the great purification, the red sun.
Yeah, the red and blue Kachina.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on that, Ishmael, the Hopi prophecy?
I think they're accurate. I think all prophecies that stem from indigenous people, whether they're Navajo, Hopi, Aztec, Mayan, Olmec, I think they were onto something. I think it was the Western, the Europeans that messed everything up and like try to conceal the true prophecies. But when it comes to prophecies, I believe that the natives are more accurate than any other prophecy. Absolutely.
Cool, man.
Specifically the Canaanites.
Again?
I said specifically the Canaanites.
The Canaanites. Oh, I thought those guys were the bad guys, right? Hey, hence.
Yeah. I'm saying that's why I said specifically the Canaanites is pretty much who scrambled the great majority.
Yeah, well, the Canaanites are pretty much the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds today. That's the descendants of the Canaanites.
They're the Phoenicians, guys. You know that, right? That's the same as this. The Phoenicians. Mm-hmm. It all ties back to that lineage, and then they conquered Carthage there for a while. And Carthage, what were they doing in Carthage? Sacrificing children. So everywhere they go, they sacrifice children to Baal. These people.
Well, Baal is Marduk. Remember, Baal is Marduk. He's just different names, same entity.
Mm. That's interesting. I've heard different theories on who Baal is, and that's fascinating.
I've heard that. I heard that as well.
That's why I've always identified Marduk as Satan.
Mm.
They say Satan's real name is not Gabriel, Gadriel. You ever hear that one? Yeah,
I've heard of that one.
It's like one of the older names of his, Gadriel. It goes back a ways, but yeah, look into it. Satan's original name, Gadriel. I thought that was fascinating too.
I mean, that's part of the reasons why, Thomas Randall, he was appointed by the Vatican. They redacted, the Book of Enoch in 1408. That's part of the reasons. A lot of the stuff that's in the Book of Enoch basically gives you the whole blueprint of what happened in the inception of creation, and talks about extraterrestrial life and things of that nature. So,
yeah, I agree. Well, that and all the other books that were left out of the Bible.
Yep, Gospel of Barnabas, the Apocrypha, and all that. Yeah, Gospel of Jesus' wife, I believe.
The Gospel of Mary Magdalene.
Yeah. It's another
the Apocrypha of John is amazing read. That gets into the archons, and it's pretty fascinating. I like to learn all the different stuff. Well, but we're at an hour and 53 minutes, guys, so we'll wrap it up. I know you guys are two busy gentlemen, and I would like to give you the floor to, if you want to promote or anything, you got anything coming up, you can do that before we sign off here. Ishmael, you want to go first, brother?
Okay, sure, yeah. So if you guys want to know like the true history of the Earth, the galactic history, learn about the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the Draco-Orion Empire, and all the history from Lyra to now, get our Cosmic Origin available on Amazon. And if you guys want to know the history of the Earth Alliance and the history of the Cabal, I would suggest getting our The Secret Government Invisible Architects. And they're both available on Amazon. Not to mention, I do broadcast on my own channel about 2 to 3 times a week, giving updates. My information comes directly from the Galactic Councils, as I am a multidimensional being. Through Kundalini Yoga and meditation, I was able to connect with my galactic self, as to I'm able to download information down to my human avatar and then share it with the world. You can check me out on the Real Ismael Perez YouTube channel. And the reason I call myself the Real Ismael Perez is because I have a lot of copycats that are trying to be me, stealing my content, using my pictures. And I just feel like that Eminem song, will the Real Ismael Perez please stand up? Please stand up.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how once you get a little following, bro, they steal my stuff too. It's so nuts. And then they'll set up a channel in your name and everything, man. I mean, they'll try to scam people. It's crazy. So you got to make sure you're following the right person out there too, guys. And don't forget, make sure you show love to our sponsors. This episode was sponsored by BDELL1014 and the 5G cellular protection. Use promo code Truthmafia, and they got these bracelets there that are supposed to protect your body from the effects of the 5G. I have mine on right now. You guys see when my dad does his podcast, he always has it on too, which we were supposed to do ours yesterday, but Pops is in the middle of moving right now. So we'll be back on schedule next week with all that. And go ahead, Bdell, my brother. What do you got going on?
Well, you can follow me on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, BDELL1014, BDELL1014. That's the same title I use on Instagram. You can follow me on Facebook at Bridal Rice Bay. And I'm currently working on a book called The Sacred Book of the Chosen Ones. And it's basically an amalgamation of quantum physics, metaphysics, mind science, technology. And we're going to be going into a little bit of theological context. And we're going to go into dark psychology and how it basically creates this dynamic of how those, certain chosen ones don't have the ability to, to cultivate those generational curses and combat them. So it's going to be a self-help book, mental health book. It's basically going to be like a one-stop shop if you want to get, certain edification from the publication. So, but yeah, you can find me on all those platforms.
Yep, all his links are down below too, guys. Same with Ishmael. And don't forget, get your decode. Find out if you're an NPC or first player character or maybe a carrier of the Neo code. That link is down below, and that's on truthfultv.com. And I just thank you guys for coming. I do want to ask you before we go, we're getting ready to do a big show for our followers. We're bringing the whole Truth Mafia together, and it's going to be Survive the Apocalypse. So just some cool tips on how to survive if something does go bad, and I would love to have both you guys on that show. We're going to try to bring the whole team on there. So, we'll work out a time and everything that works with everybody. But thank you guys so much for doing this today. I really appreciate it, man. I'm a big fan of both of your guys. So I just thank you guys for coming on.
You're welcome, Tom. You're welcome. Yep. And it's a pleasure meeting you, Bdell.
It was nice meeting you too, sir. Appreciate you.
All right, guys, we're out. Smash that like button.
Peace.